All right, this is part 2 of Watership Down of El and the Black Rabbit of Inlay. Why I'm doing it in the car? Well, I'm going to be picking up the grumpy old guy at the train station. So I got enough time to be able to burn out this second part 2 of this blasted thing, and we'll pick up right here. The black rabbit spoke with a voice of water that falls into pools and in echoing places in the dark. El, why have you come here? I have come for my people, whispered El. The black rabbit smelled as clean as last year's bones, and in the dark, El could see his eyes, but they were red with a light that gave no light. You are a stranger here, El, said the black rabbit. You are alive. My lord, replied El, I have come to give you my life for my people. The black rabbit drew his claws along the floor. That's right, it is a he. I have to reiterate, it is a he. Not like a she, like they did in the last redone of Watership Down in Britain, England, or wherever the rest of them limey clowns are at. They made it into a female because of woke, which is bullshit. But we're going to continue on. I got to turn this thing on, man. It is 94 outside. Anyway, and I got to turn the music off because I'll get hit with a copyright infringement. Here we go. Okay. Bargains, El, he said. There's not a day or a night, but a doe offers her life for her kittens, or some honest captain of Alza his life for his chief rabbits. Sometimes it is taken, sometimes it's not. But there is no bargain, for here what is what must be. El was silent, and he thought, perhaps I can trick him into taking my life. He would keep his promise, as Prince Rainbow kept his. I'm going to trick the Grim Reaper of Rabbits. Okay, cool. You are my guest, El, said the black rabbit. Stay in my burrow as long as you wish. You may sleep here, and you may eat here. They are few, indeed, who can do as much. Let him eat, he said to the owls. I will not eat, my lord, said El, for he knows that if he ate the food on which they gave him in that burrow, his secret thoughts would become plain. It would be an end of tricks. At least we must entertain you, said the black rabbit. You must feel at home, El, Make yourself comfortable. Come, let us play bobstones. Down here, bobstones is a traditional game of rabbits. It is played with small stones, fragments of sticks, or the like. Fundamentally, it is a very simple kind of gambling on the lines of odds and evens. A cast of the stones on the ground is covered by the player's front paw. The opponent must then hazard or some sort of surmise about its nature, one or two, light or dark, rough or smooth. Whatever that bullshit means. Very well, said El, and if I win, my lord, perhaps you'd be so good as accept my life in return for my people's safety. Oh, what a trick. I will, said the Black Rabbit, but if I win, El, you must give me both your tail and your whiskers. The stones were brought, and El sat down in the cold, and the echoes to play against the Black Rabbit of India. Now, as you may suppose, El knew how to play bobstones. He could play as well as any rabbit that ever covered a cast. But there, in that dreadful place, with the Black Rabbit's eyes upon him, and the Owsla made no sound. Try as he would, his wits deserted him even before he cast. And he felt the Black Rabbit knew what was down. The Black Rabbit showed nor the least haste. He played as the snows fall without sound or change, until at last El-Ra's spirit failed him, and he knew he could not win. This is worse than Vegas. You can pay your stakes to the Owsla, El-Ra, said the Black Rabbit, and they will show you a burrow to sleep in. I shall return tomorrow, and if you are still here, I will see you. But you're free to leave whenever you wish. This guy is not like Cowslip. Then the Owsla took El-Ra away and cut off his tail and pulled out his whiskers. And then when he came to himself, he was alone with Rabscuttle in a hollow stone burrow with the opening to the mountainside. Oh, master, said Rabscuttle, what will you do now? For brisk sakes, let us go away. I can feel for both of us in the dark. Certainly not, said El-Ra. He still hoped to get what he wanted from the Black Rabbit somehow, and he felt sure they can put into this burrow so they can be tempted to steal away. Certainly not. I can make do, well, with some willow herb and santamus. Okay, that's plants, more freaking plants from Richard Adams, for crying out loud. Anyway, go out and get some, Rabscuttle, and I'll make sure you come back before tomorrow evening. You had better try to bring some food too, if you can. Rabscuttle went out as he was told, and El-Ra left alone. He slept very little, partly for the pain and partly for the fear that never left him, but chiefly because he was searching for some trick that would serve his turn. The next day, Rabscuttle returned with some pieces of turnip, and after El-Ra has eaten them, Rabscuttle helped him to patch himself up with a gray tail and whiskers made from a winter drift of clematis and ragwort. In that evening, he went to meet the Black Rabbit as though nothing has happened. So I got some fake-ass shit stuck on me. Well, El-Ra, said the Black Rabbit, and he did not wrinkle his nose up or down when he sniffed, but thrust it forward as a dog does. My burrow could not be what you're used to, but perhaps you have done your best to make yourself comfortable. Hmm? I have, my lord, said Elra. I'm glad that you allow me to stay. Perhaps we will not play bobstones tonight, said the Black Rabbit. I'd rather give him a death metal voice, personally. You must understand, Elra, that I wish not to make you suffer. I am not the one of the 1,000. I repeat, you may stay or leave as you please. But if you're going to remain, perhaps you would care to hear a story. Or tell one yourself if you like. I'm going to try a death metal voice on this guy, but it's probably going to kick my ass. Certainly, my lord, said Elra. And if I can tell a story as good as yours, perhaps you'll accept my life and grant the safety of my people. All right, I'm going to try the death metal one. I will, said the Black Rabbit. But if not, Elra, you will forfeit your ears. He waited to see whether Elra refused the wager, but he did not. Then the Black Rabbit told such a tale of fear and darkness as it froze the hearts of Rapscuttle and Elra, where they crouched on a rock. And they knew that every word was true. Their wits turned. They seemed to be plunged into icy clouds and numbed their senses, and the Black Rabbit's story creeped into their hearts like a worm in a nut, leaving them shriveled and empty. When, at last, the terrible story ended, Elra tried to speak, but he could not collect his thoughts, and he stammered and ran about the floor like a mouse when the hawk glides low. The Black Rabbit waited silently and with no sign of impatience. And at last it was clear that there would be no story from Elra. And the Owsla took him and put him in a deep sleep. And when he woke, his ears were gone. Only Rapscuttle was beside him in the stone burrow, crying like a kitten. And this guy's supposed to be Captain of Owsla. Okay. Oh, master, said Rapscuttle, what good does this suffering bring? For the sake of Lord Frith and the green grass, let me take you home. Nonsense, said Elra. Go out and get me 2 good big dock leaves. They'll do very well for ears. Oh, shit. Oh, they will wither, master, said Rapscuttle, and I am withered now. They will last long enough, said Elra grimly. For what I have to do, but I can't find the way. When Rapscuttle was gone, Elra forced himself to think clearly. The Black Rabbit would not accept his life. Also, it would be plain that himself would never be able to win any sort of wager against him. He might as well try to run a race across a sheet of ice. Very astute. But if the Black Rabbit did not hate him, why would he inflict such suffering upon him? To destroy his courage, to make him give up and go away. But why not simply send him away? And why wait? Before hurting him, tell himself, pose a wager and lose it. The answer came to him suddenly. The shadows had no power either to send him away or to hurt him, except on his own consent. They would not help him. No, they would seek possession of his will and break it if they could. But supposing he can find among them something they would save his people, and could they stop from taking it away? When Rapscuttle came back, he helped Elra to disguise his horrible maned head with 2 dock leaves in place of ears. And after a while they slept. But El kept dreaming of his starving rabbits, waiting in the runs to push back King Darzan's soldiers and placing all their hopes on him. And at last he woke, cold and cramped. He wandered out into the runs of the stone warren. He limped along, trailing the dock leaves either side of his head, for he could not raise or move them like the ears he had lost. He came to a place from several narrow runs that would lead deeper into the ground. There he found two ghastly, shadowy owsla moving on some dark business of their own. They turned and stared to make him afraid, but El was past being afraid and stared back at them, wondering what they had in mind to persuade him to lose. "Turn back, El one said at last. "You have no business here in the pit. You are alive and have suffered much already." "Not as much as my people," replied El. "There is enough suffering here for 1,000 warrens," said the shadow. "Do not be stubborn, El. In these holes lie all the plagues and diseases that come to rabbits. Fear and mange and the sickness of bowels." Yeah, talk about sickness of the bowels. "Here too, in the nearest hole, lies the white blindness that sends creatures hobbling out to die in the fields. But when Elil will not touch their rotting bodies, this is our task. We to see all these are ready for the use of Enle-Ra, and for what must be." Then El knew that he must give himself no time to think. He pretended to go back, and then suddenly turned and rushed upon the shadows and plunged into the nearest hole faster than a raindrop into the ground. And where he laid, the dense shadows flickered and glibbered about the entrance, but there was no power to movement except by fear. After a time, they went away, and El was left alone, wondering whether he'd be able to reach King Darzan's army in time without the use of whiskers and ears. I guess. At last, when he was sure that he had stayed in the hole long enough to be infected, El came out and made his way back along the run. He did not know how soon the disease would appear or how long it would take for him to die, but plainly he ought to return as quickly as he could, if possible, before there was any signs of illness on him. But without going near Rabscuttle, he must tell him to hurry ahead and reach the rabbits in the warren and warn them to block all the holes and stay inside until King Darwin's army is destroyed. He blundered into a stone in the dark, for he was shivering and feverish, and in case he could not feel little and nothing without his whiskers. And at the moment, a quiet voice said, El, where are you going?" He had heard nothing, but he knew the black rabbit was beside him. "I'm going home, my lord," he replied. "You said I might go when I wished." "You have some purpose, El, said the black rabbit. "What is it?" "I've been infected in the pit, my lord," answered El. "I'm infected with the white blindness, and I'm going to save my people by destroying the enemy." El, said the black rabbit, "do you know how the white blindness is carried?" A sudden misgiving seized upon El, and he said nothing. "It is carried by fleas and rabbits' ears," said the black rabbit, and they passed from the ears of the sick rabbit to those of his companions. But you have no fleas and ears, and will not go into dark leaves, and you neither can catch or carry the white blindness. Ugh. That was a little bit of ugh. Yeah, it doesn't sound right. Then at last, El felt his strength and courage have gone. He fell on the ground, tried to move, but his back legs dragged along the rock and could not get up. He scuffled and lay still and silent. Pop. Oh, shit. Eleanor, said the black rabbit at last. This is a cold warren, a bad place for the living, and no place for warm hearts and brave spirits. You are a nuisance to me. Go home. I myself will save your people. Do not have the impertinence to ask me when. There is no time here. They have already saved. Okay. At that moment, when King Tarzan's soldiers were jeering down the holes of the warrens, confusion and terror came upon them, falling in the darkness. The field seemed full of huge rabbits with red eyes, stalking amongst the thistles. They turned and fled. They vanished in the night. And that is why no rabbit who tells the tales of El can say what kind of creatures they were or what they looked like. Not one of them has ever been seen from that day to this. When at last El were able to raise to his feet, the black rabbit was gone. Rabscuttle came down the run looking for him. Together they went out to the mountainside and made their way down the stone-rattling gully into the mist. They did not know for where they were going, except they were going away from the black rabbit's warren. But after a time it became plain that El was ill from shock and exhaustion. Rabscuttle dug a scrape and they stayed there for a few days. Later, when El began to feel better, they wandered on, but they could not find their way back. They were confused in their wits and then had to beg and shelter of other animals who they met. Their journey home lasted 3 months, and many adventures they had. Some of these, as you know, were stories in themselves. Damn, how many pages is this bitch? They lived with Lindray, found pleasant eggs for him in the woods. Once they barely escaped from the middle of a hayfield when the hay was cutting. And all the time, Rabscuttle looked after El brought him fresh dock leaves, and kept the flies from his wounds until they were healed. At last, one day, they came back to the warren. It was evening, and the sun stretched out all over the hills. They could see a number of rabbits at souffle nibbling on the grass and playing over the ant heaps. They stopped on top of the field and sniffed the grouse and herb Robert on the wind. Well, they look all right, said El A healthy lot, really. Let's just slip in quietly and see whether we can find one or two of the Owsla captains underground. We won't want to make a lot of fuss. They made their way along the hedgerow but could not altogether get their bearings, because apparently the warren has gotten bigger and there were more holes than before. Both in the bank and in the field, they stopped to speak to a group of smart young bucks and does sitting under the elder bloom. We want to find Loofstripe. So, Rabscuttle, can you tell us where his burrow is? I never heard of him, answered one of the bucks. Are you sure he's in this warren? Unless he's dead, said Rabscuttle. Surely you must have heard of Captain Loosestripe. He was an officer in the Owls in the fighting. What fighting? Asked another buck. The fight against King Darzan, replied Lapscuttle. Here, do me a favor, old fellow, will you? Said the buck. That fighting. I wasn't born when it was finished. But surely you know the Owlsla captains who were, said Rapscuttle. I wouldn't see dead with them, said the buck. What, that white-whiskered old bunch? What do we want to know about them? What they did. That warlark, old fellow, said the first buck. That's all finished now. That's got nothing to do with us. If this Loosestripe fought King what's-his-name, that's his business, said one of the does. It's not our business, is it? Well, it was all a very wicked thing, said the other doe. Shameful, really. If nobody fights in the wars, there wouldn't be any, would there? But you can't get old rabbits to see that. My father was in it, said the second buck. He gets on about it sometimes, and I always go out quick. They did this and they did that and all that caper. Makes you curl up, honestly. Poor old geezer. You'd think he would want to forget about it. I reckon it makes half of it up. And where did it get him? Tell me. Okay, this is like going into the VA, actually the old VFW, and you're sitting there listening to all the World War II veterans and the Korean War veterans and the Vietnam vets, because, you know, they're all in their 70s, 80s, and 90s now. So you got these young Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who are 30 years old, 28, 29, 30 years old, 35. And they're sitting there listening to these guys going, let me tell you, when I was in the WWV at Korea, I was with the 477th Waffen SS Airborne Brigade, you know, fought at Smoke Bomb Hill in Italy, and then, you know, the 39th Parallel, you know, it's kind of like that. I'm going to be 60 here, guys, and I'm an Iraq War veteran, so, you know, I can't get on about that because I would be an old geezer. Well, I'm actually there anyway, so I don't sit around the VFW doing this shit, but this is actually good stuff. If you don't mind waiting a little, sir, said the third buck to Eleanor, I'll go and see if I can find Captain Loosestripe for you. I don't actually know him myself, but it's a rather big one. Well, that's good of you, said Eleanor. But I think I got my bearings now. I can manage by myself. Let's get out of this shit. You get away from these fucking young fucking clowns. Eleanor went along the hedgerow to the wood and sat alone under the nut bush, looking across the field. As if the light began to fall, he suddenly realized Lord Frith was close beside him among the leaves. Are you angry, Eleanor? Asked Lord Frith. No, my lord, replied Eleanor. I'm not angry, but I have learned a lot. Learned that with creatures one's love, suffering is not the only thing for which one may pity them. A rabbit who does not know when the gift was made him safe is poorer than a slug, even though he might think otherwise himself. Wisdom is found in the desolate hillside, Eleanor, where none comes to feed, in the stony bank where a rabbit scratches a hole in vain. But Speaking of gifts, I have a true truffles for you. A pair of ears, a tail, and some whiskers. You might find the ears slightly strained at first, but I put a little starlight in them. But it's really quite faint. Not enough, I am sure, to give away a clever thief like you. Ah, there is Rab Scuttle coming back. Good. I have something for him too. Shall we? Hazel! Hazel, rah! It was Pipkin's voice from behind the clump of the burlock on the edge of the little circle of listener. There's a fox coming up the comb. And this is the end of Chapter 31, Part 2 of El Alam Ra and the Black Rabbit of Endley. And I hope you enjoyed that, because that kind of killed my voice a little bit. So anyway, that is your story, Part 2. And then we'll be going on to episode 32.